Dad, should I choose Plan N or Plan G?
Well, that's a great question. Plan N and Plan G are two of the most popular Medigap plans out there. They're also the two most comprehensive Medigap plans available for those who are newly eligible for Medicare. So besides the cost, Plan N is typically less expensive than Plan G. But besides that, what are the key differences? And most importantly, how do you know which plan is right for you? Well, let's talk about it. Now, I like working with real numbers, so we're going to look at some real numbers. Now, I just pulled up Humana, and there are a lot of insurers that provide Medigap plans. Lots of them, and Humana is one of the big ones. And so we're just going to use Humana as an example. And these plans, these premiums, are going to change based on where you're located. So I just chose, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. No reason, no rhyme or reason. I just chose it because I had to choose something. Now, we're just going to look at Humana Plan G and Humana Plan N because that's what we're comparing, G and N. We're not going to look at F because F is no longer available for newly eligible Medicare beneficiaries. Not allowed to do Plan F. So we're not going to talk about Plan F at all. It's more of a legacy plan. And we're not going to talk about Plan A either. Focused on the most comprehensive plans available to you, Plan G and Plan N. And you'll see right off the bat, Plan G is more expensive than Plan N, right? About $30 more expensive. And that's because it provides a bit more coverage than Plan N. Now, you got to decide whether or not that's valuable to you or not. We're going to go through the differences as to why Plan G is more expensive, or said the other way, why Plan N is less expensive than Plan G. All right, so let's get into the differences or the similarities. So Part A, your hospital deductible. Now, in 2023, the Part A deductible is $1,600 for 2023, right? Per benefit period. And you have to remember, depending on how long your gaps are between hospitalizations, you could have multiple benefit periods in a year. So you could pay that $1,600 deductible multiple times a year. So it's great that these Medigap plans cover that for you, so you don't have to worry about that because that could get expensive. Part B, deductible. Now, ever since 2020, plans after 2020 are no longer permitted to cover that Medicare Part B deductible, and it's $226 in 2023, so it's not that bad. But none of these plans, none of the new plans, so Part F is different. But if you're newly eligible for Medicare, you're going to have to pay that $226 deductible. You're going to have to cover that. And just a reminder of what the deductible is. It's the amount that you have to pay up front as you incur these expenses before Medicare starts to pay. And of course, Medicare starts to pay either co-pays or co-payments or co-insurance. And that co-insurance is 80-20. So Medicare pays 20% or 80%, you pay 20%. Again, Medicare pays 80%, you pay 20%. All right, so similar here, right? Let's go into this co-insurance and hospital costs. So for Part A, your first 60 days in a hospital are covered. You don't have to come out of pocket other than that $1,600 deductible. But with these Medigap plans, you don't even have to come out of the pocket for that. From day 61 to 90 of hospitalization, you do have a copay. And in 2023, that copay is $400 a day. Now, after day 90, you have 60 lifetime reserve days where your copay is $800. Now, once you run through those, you exhaust those lifetime reserve days, then you got to pay everything. Well, what these Medigap plans do is they cover those copays from 60 to 91 and 91 through your lifetime reserve days. So that $400 a day and that $800 a day, these Medigap plans cover that. But not only that, they give you an additional 365 days once your lifetime reserve days are exhausted. So that's great. And they both do that. G and N both provide that coverage. So that's amazing. That's awesome. Here's one of the key differences: the co-insurance and the co-payment. So with Plan G, right? You go to the doctor's office. You have a doctor's visit, right? If there's a co-pay, whatever that is, Plan G is going to cover it. You have no other out-of-pocket costs once you cover that Part B deductible of $226. You don't have to worry about that. Part G has that covered for you. Plan N is different though. So for certain doctor visits, office visits, you may have up to a $20 copay. So you will still have to come out of your pocket up to $20 per visit. For the emergency room visit, if you end up going to the emergency room, you have up to a $50 copay for that. Now, if you're going to the doctor's office and you have office visits and you're pretty sick and you're going to the emergency room pretty often, well, you can see how those numbers could add up. So that's one reason you may want to choose Plan G, is because you're going to have plenty of office visits and plenty of those expenses. You don't even want to deal with those copays. Well, if you don't want to do that, then maybe Plan G is the right plan for you. Now, if you don't anticipate going to the doctor that often, don't anticipate going to the ER. Well, who anticipates going to the ER all the time, right? It just kind of happens. And of course, as we get older, we get sicker. It's hard to forecast those things. But if you don't think that you're going to have those visits and those copays, well, then you may opt for that Plan N and get that lower premium, because you're okay paying if your doctor visits, end up being, 6 or 7 times in a year or something like that, then you would save money by doing Plan N as opposed to Plan G. All right, let's go to some other similarities, right? These are the same. So the first 3 pints of blood, Part A hospice care, co-insurance, skilled nursing care, the Part A deductible. And we talked about that. That Part A deductible, that's $1,600 per benefit period, and it's covered with Plan G and Plan N. So those are similar. And we talked about this too, that Part B deductible, that $226, this number up here, you got to cover that. No new plan is going to cover that Part B deductible, but it's only $226. The other key difference here is the Part B excess charge. So what are excess charges? Well, providers contract with Medicare to accept those Medicare assigned rates. And some providers are able to charge more than those assigned rates, up to 15% more. They can charge you up to 15% more, and that has to be approved by Medicare. Let me say that again. It has to be approved by Medicare, that additional cost, that excess cost, up to 15% of the original cost of the service. Now, this is not a huge deal because it's estimated that maybe 2 to 5% of physicians actually have excess charges approved by Medicare. But you can figure that out. You can ask your physician, ask your provider, hey, do you accept Medicare's assigned rates? Or do you charge excess charges? That will inform whether or not this additional coverage is going to be valuable to you or not. Now, you also have to do some predicting because there's some uncertainty out there, right? You may have, different physicians in the future, different specialists in the future that even though they accept Medicare's assigned rates today, all of your doctors do, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen in the future. So you got to accept some uncertainty. Now, if you're like, you know what? None of my physicians, none of my providers charge excess charges. I don't think that it's going to be a huge deal because, 95 to 98% of physicians don't charge those excess charges. Well, then maybe Part N, Plan N, is the decision for you. But if you don't want to worry about it, you want to take that risk off the table, then you would consider Plan G. Key differences: the excess charges and the copays and the coinsurance. Foreign travel, so they both provide somewhat, some coverage, but not huge coverage in the case of emergency services for foreign travel. And none of these Medigap plans are going to cover routine dental and vision. So how should you think about these numbers? Well, if you look at the difference between this monthly premium of Plan G and the monthly premium for Plan N, it's about $30. Right? Well, how much is that over the course of a year? 30 times 12, that's $360. All right? Plan G is going to cost you $360 more than Plan N. And if we just look at the copays and the coinsurance, right? How many times are you going to have to pay this $20 copay in order to make up for that $360 that you're paying an additional premium? Who knows? It's a forecast. You got to guess, right? Are you going to go, 8 times to the physician, to a doctor and have to pay those copays? If so, let's say 8 times a year. $20 a copay, that's $160. Well, if that's it, then maybe Plan N makes more sense. Maybe that's more economical. The wild card, of course, is these excess charges, but who knows? It's tough to forecast that because you have to take 15% off of some, service in the future. Who knows what that procedure, what that cost is going to be? It's hard to know. So what we do know is, have an estimation on is, how many times do you expect to go to the physician? And do you want to take those costs off the table? That's how you would think about, do you want Plan G or Plan N? Which is right for you? It's really risk management, I would think. All right, you want to take all the risk off the table of those additional costs, copays. You don't want to have to pay those copays all the time. It just annoys you or frustrates you. Then Plan G might be your bet. Your best bet. It's all about having peace of mind. Now, if you don't go to the doctor, you don't foresee yourself going to the doctor, you really want to save that $30 a month, then you would think about Plan N. But all I have to say, the only advice that I have to give is that after looking at all of this, think about your own particular situation, not what someone else did, what they did, what works for someone else. What do you think is right for you? How much risk or exposure do you want to take on yourself, and how much do you want to take off the table? And are you willing or are you able to pay for it? Those are the ultimate questions. The math is the math. I want you to make the right decision for you. Why? Because you only get one chance at a successful retirement.
I got it. That makes sense, Dad.